The kingdom of Valoria woke under a sky smudged with bruised clouds, as if Dorne itself hesitated to rise. A strange tension fluttered in the air, rippling through the banners hanging from the palace towers. Servants whispered of omens, animals moved with restless caution, and the wind shifted unevenly, carrying sharp breaths of cold. In the tallest tower overlooking the sleeping kingdom, a young girl stood still as carved marble, her fingertips pressed against the frosted glass. Princess Ilara, the silent princess, let her gaze sweep over the land she loved yet felt detached from, as though she were forever watching a world she could never truly enter. Inside her, emotions churned like rivers trapped beneath ice, constant, powerful, unseen. She had lived 17 years without speaking a single word, though her mind was a symphony no one ever heard. People assumed her silence was a curse, or a stubborn defiance, or a flaw etched into her soul. But those who thought such things never looked closely enough to notice the depth in her eyes, the softness in her gestures, or the way she felt everything with an intensity that stole her breath. If you believe in kindness, compassion, and second chances, please like, comment, share, and subscribe because stories like this are meant to touch hearts across the world. Ilara's silence shaped her life in ways she couldn't escape. Her parents loved her fiercely but misunderstood her wounds. The queen tried to coax words from her with soft pleas, believing love could unravel whatever held her back. The king, however, leaned toward strict remedies and tutors who tried to fix her. Each failed attempt pressed Ilara deeper into herself, until silence became both shield and prison. She learned to express with her eyes, her hands, her posture, yet the world wanted sound and she had none to give. Every banquet, every ceremony, every royal gathering made her feel smaller, as though the world towered over her, expecting her to rise but she could not. And so she retreated to her tower, her garden, her books, her sketching corner, anywhere she could breathe without judgment. Everything remained predictable in its quiet ache until the day a carriage with emerald banners and silver trim thundered through the palace gates, stirring dust and anticipation alike. Princess Seraphina of Solaria had arrived. People called her the Talkative Princess, a girl who spoke with a heart full of fire. Her voice was known to fill halls with laughter, weave stories that left people spellbound, and dance through conversations like wind through chimes. She possessed the kind of presence that disrupted silence effortlessly. When she stepped out of her carriage, sunshine seemed to cling to her as if she carried her own weather, warm, bright, inviting. Where Ilara moved like the hush before snowfall, Seraphina moved like a spark leaping from flame. She was 17 as well, with lively eyes that flickered with curiosity and a smile that bloomed easily. Sent to Valoria for diplomatic study, Seraphina approached the palace with open admiration. But when she first laid eyes on Ilara across the great hall, everything in her paused. Something inside her recognized the girl standing quietly behind her parents, not in a mystical way, but in the way one recognizes a story waiting to be understood. Seraphina approached with radiant enthusiasm. Courtiers expected awkwardness, perhaps even a clash of personalities. Yet Seraphina found comfort in speaking while Ilara listened. And Ilara, who had always found words overwhelming, discovered something soothing about Seraphina's voice. It never demanded anything from her, it only filled the spaces where silence felt heavy. Thus began a friendship that blossomed rapidly, a fusion of quiet waters and bright flames. Ilara observed Seraphina's unfiltered honesty, the way she laughed with her whole being, the way she animated every story with vivid gestures. Seraphina, in turn, learned to read Ilara's micro-expressions. The slight tilt of her head meant curiosity, the faint crease between her brows meant worry, the soft upturn at the corner of her lips meant joy. They learned more about each other in days than most people learned in years. Yet beneath their connection lay unspoken fears. Ilara worried she offered too little, her silence a weight Serafina had to carry. Serafina worried her endless talking might overwhelm Ilara, that her energy might exhaust someone whose world was quieter. Their fears simmered beneath the surface, unnoticed by others but deeply felt by each girl. Still, they grew inseparable, two halves of something whole yet wonderfully different. As winter melted into spring, the palace prepared for the grand spring festival. Nobles from across the realm attended, filling the courtyard with vibrant silks and bustling chatter. It was the kingdom's most important celebration, marking renewal and unity. This year, Ilara was expected to perform a ceremonial greeting, a single spoken line. Her parents believed that if she spoke before the kingdom, the moment would change her life. But Ilara felt the opposite. The mere thought of hundreds of eyes on her tightened her chest until she could hardly draw breath. She practiced alone, whispering into the emptiness of her room, but each attempt trembled into nothing. On the morning of the festival, she dressed in a gown of shimmering blue, the color of deep lakes. But her reflection in the mirror showed only fear. Her hands trembled, her heartbeat thundered, and tears pressed behind her eyes. She felt trapped, as if her throat were locked with invisible chains. Serafina found her sitting motionlessly, a quiet storm brewing behind her calm face. She sensed the silent cry for help that Ilara didn't know how to express. So she sat beside her. She didn't offer false encouragement or push her to speak. She simply stayed, a warm presence in a moment when Ilara felt like collapsing. And Ilara realized then that Serafina didn't want her voice, she wanted her, just as she was. When the ceremony began, the courtyard glowed with sunlight and excitement. Nobles gathered, flutes played soft melodies, and petals drifted through the air. Ilara walked toward the platform, her steps heavy as if she were wading through water. When she reached the center and saw the expectant faces, her throat closed entirely. No sound emerged. Whispers rolled through the crowd, disappointment dimming their expressions. Then Serafina stepped forward. With grace and certainty, she took Ilara's hand and addressed the people. She spoke of courage that doesn't roar, of strength carried quietly, of battles fought in silence. She asked the kingdom to honor Ilara not with applause, but with a moment of silence. A silence that belonged not to absence, but to understanding. The courtyard stilled, heads bowed, hearts softened, and Ilara felt something inside her break open, not from pain, but from release. Tears warmed her cheeks softly. This moment, meant to shame her, had transformed into one of profound acceptance. And the girl who once felt invisible now felt seen. The kingdom praised Serafina's eloquence, but something deeper stuck with them, the image of two princesses, hands clasped, one speaking for the other not out of pity but out of love. Their friendship blossomed into a force of nature. Ilara began stepping out of her comfort zone not because she was pushed, but because Serafina's presence made the world feel less overwhelming. She started walking through the villages, visiting gardens, watching children play, listening to the worries of mothers and farmers, offering comfort in her silent but warm way. People found peace in her presence, sometimes even more than in spoken reassurance. Serafina, too, changed. She learned the value of stillness, the beauty of quiet reflection. She started speaking less impulsively, choosing her words more thoughtfully. In Ilara's gentle silence, Serafina found a calm she never realized she needed. But change, true change, rarely arrives without challenge. Rumors began spreading of famine in the neighboring kingdom of Dravenor. Drought had drained rivers, crops had failed, and the people were suffering. Dravenor's queen, Marietter, reluctant yet desperate, sent a message seeking alliance and aid. Valorier responded, forming a diplomatic envoy tasked with negotiation and support. The king believed Seraphina's charisma and communication skills would be invaluable, and Seraphina insisted Ilara accompany her. Ilara's presence, she argued, offered something diplomats often lacked: empathy that needed no translation. After much hesitation, the king agreed. Their journey across rugged landscapes unfolded under shifting skies, from lush valleys to barren plains. Seraphina spoke animatedly through the days, her stories keeping spirits high, while Ilara observed everything with quiet focus: the fatigue in villagers' eyes, the desperation in their movements, the fragile hope clinging to their lives. When they reached Dravener, the devastation was undeniable. Dry earth cracked underfoot, rivers had shriveled to muddy ribbons, and entire fields stood lifeless. Yet the people carried their suffering with dignity. In the royal hall, Queen Marietta received the envoy with wary eyes. She feared appearing weak. She feared accepting help meant surrendering autonomy. Seraphina presented Valorier's proposals passionately, but Marietta's fear made her cold, calculating, unmoved. Ilara watched in silence, and then she stepped forward. She reached for Marietta's hands, trembling, roughened by stress, and offered the quietest gesture of empathy. No words, only presence, only truth. Tears filled Marietta's eyes. She realized she didn't need a leader with speeches, she needed someone who understood. The alliance formed. Together, Valorier and Dravener revived the lands. Rivers were redirected, crops replanted, villages healed. Seraphina led with voice, Ilara led with heart. Their differences became their combined strength. Months passed, and the weight of their work forged them into leaders neither kingdom had expected but both deeply needed. When they finally returned home, Valorier welcomed them with open arms, celebrating not only their achievement but the unity they embodied. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe so more people can feel this emotion with you. Before the ending, comment below: are you more like the Silent Princess or the Talkative Princess? Together, Ilara and Seraphina reshaped futures, softened hardened hearts, and taught the world a simple truth: that strength comes in many forms, and that the most powerful alliances often rise from the union of differences. Long after their story settled into history, their friendship continued to be told as a reminder that love, understanding, and courage need not always speak loudly. Sometimes they whisper, and the world listens.